We need to talk about something important. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, the official 9th installment in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, originally created by Scott Cawthon, and with this game being developed by Steelable Studios. When this game released in December 2021, it had a very mixed response. There was people who loved or liked the game, and there was people who disliked it or flat out hated it, as well as people thinking it was just okay or down straight in the middle. There's something that this game brought when it came out that we need to discuss. So, despite the mixed responses of this game brought FNaF back into mainstream popularity. It can even rival the series' popularity in 2014 and 2015. On the surface, it seems like a great thing, and in terms of memes and fan creations and all of that, that stuff is good. However, with this, it brought some not so good things along with it, and this couldn't be any more shown in the FNaF community itself. Now, the FNaF community was never perfect. In a community, there's always going to be a group of toxic individuals. However, when Security Breach released, I noticed something. This problem in the FNaF community started to increase, and with that, there's been other problems. Let's discuss those. Before we begin, if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe down below and turn on the notification bell. Totally optional, but it'd be appreciated if you did. Without further ado, let's discuss how this mixed response of a game ruined the Five Nights at Freddy's community. Now, like I said in the intro, the FNaF community was never perfect. It's always had its bad apples. Whether it be general toxic people that were assholes to others in the community.
Is like gay for some reason. I'm not sure why, but like a lot of FNaF fans are gay.
Weird people making fan creations that are questionable.
Hey, hey now everyone, we have a new guest.
Or straight up fucked up individuals like Nietzsche or Mando Pony or Jonachrome that have done legitimate terrible things. However, the FNaF community was also not completely bad. There were YouTubers and other people that created content to show their genuine interest in the series, and just in general, normal users who simply wanted to discuss the series. Whether it was theorizing the main series' lore, playing the games, talking about things surrounding the series like the fan games and fan songs, and the focus point of my argument for this video, sharing their honest opinions and criticisms on certain areas in the series. So sharing opinions and criticisms. This was a regular thing, even since the beginning of the franchise's inception. People had their personal opinions on the FNaF games, whether it be loving FNaF VR and FNaF 1, or hating FNaF AR and FNaF 4. People would always have their reasons for either liking or disliking a FNaF game. Except the difference between how it was before and after Security Breach was released regarding people sharing their opinions on the FNaF games was that before, people were much more controlled and more respectful of other people's opinions. It was never as polarizing prior to the game's release. For example, if you went out and said you loved FNaF 3 but hated FNaF 2, even with the popular opinion in the community being the other way around, people in the community were more respectful. They would disagree, but they would not try to fight you over it and try to call your opinions things like shit taste, or objectively bad opinion, or bad take, or something like that. People were more chill and less reactionary. Of course, there was a few people in the community that went off the rails when someone had a different opinion, but those people were usually children that didn't understand the concepts of disagreeing with an opinion yet, so it wasn't a huge deal. Even the days of FNaF World didn't have this issue, and I'd argue that FNaF World had more negative reception than Security Breach. Security Breach was more of a mixed reception, because while there was many people who did not like the game, there were still many people who did like it. For FNaF World, while there are people today that like or even love the game, back then it was mostly negative reception. However, with that worse reception, the FNaF community was still being respectful of other people. With that being the case, when Security Breach released and you saw the community's discussion on the game on places like Twitter and YouTube comment sections and FNaF related Discord servers, it makes you ask, what happened? Well, my friends, I have an answer to that question. The answer to that question is when Security Breach released, it brought in a whole slew of new fans to the FNaF franchise. Of course, giving the FNaF series much more recognition and popularity. Now on the surface, and truly to some people in the community, even myself, saw this as a good and positive thing. Our favorite game franchise was starting to get more positive and curious buzz that was genuine, after so many years of constantly being bashed and shat on. Under the cringe culture mindset the series had the reputation of arguably up to this point. However, some people in the community saw this as a bad thing, and I think this is the overall cause of the main conflict that was in my eyes, the reason that made Security Breach ruin the FNaF community. So essentially, the reason why some people in the FNaF community saw this newfound popularity and swarm of new fans for their game a bad thing all stems from this. One of the main criticisms people had for Security Breach was that it was just simply not FNaF, both in tone and gameplay. Why a lot of people loved FNaF back in the early days was because games like the original 4 FNaF games knew how to create horror for the use of an ominous and mysterious atmosphere, and the original but defenseless feeling gameplay. When Security Breach came along, the gameplay 50% of the time was a bendy and poppy playtime style walking simulator, and the atmosphere was more clean and more marketable to a younger audience. When many new fans came in and joined the FNaF community, now liking the series because of Security Breach, these certain people were not happy. These certain people's thought was ultimately that these new fans were liking FNaF for the wrong reasons. And 70% of these new fans joining were either young children or teenagers, likely because of the game's more child-friendly tone that appealed to them. Whether it's the appearance of the Pizzaplex looking colorful, or the fact that the main animatronics, instead of being silent killers, are now actual characters with actual personalities that a lot of these younger fans could latch onto. Going back to FNaF World, the reason why the community was more respectful and relaxed when it came to other opinions was because while FNaF World did indeed have an arguably worse reception, FNaF World didn't reel in new fans to the series. In fact, FNaF World released during a time when fans were actually leaving the series. So this newfound love for FNaF because of Security Breach was ultimately the factor that led to conflict in the community. Because these people thought that the new FNaF fans were joining the community for the wrong reasons, these people took it upon themselves to start shitting on these people for liking Security Breach. And then very quickly, old fans, or at the very least, fans that liked FNaF before Security Breaches were released, that actually liked the game, started to be seen as equal to these new groups of fans, all culminating into the new fan stereotype. According to them, if you loved Security Breach, or anything that's related to the modern state of FNaF that's official, you're just a young, dirty, little stupid new fan that has shit taste and must quit the internet and maybe your life. And because of this as well, new FNaF fans also started the old fan stereotype. And according to them, if you were a fan of FNaF since the beginning and only liked the games created by Scott Cawthon and were crying about what Security Breach brought to the table, you're a dirty and pathetic dick sucker to Scott Cawthon and his quote-unquote genius in storytelling. And because of this, war started to commence in the community. And this wasn't just a simple war. This was a specific war. Opinion. A view or judgment formed about something, not necessarily based on fact or knowledge. Did you know that? Well, congratulations if you did, because after Security Breach released, around 70% of the community forgot what that word fucking meant. Opinions are not facts. Opinions are actually subjective. A decent portion of Security Breach lovers and haters have been expressing their opinions subjectively. However, the problem arises when people start displaying their opinions as factual truth. This is where I personally take issue. People should be allowed to like or dislike a game as much as they want. There's a difference between disagreeing with an opinion and not respecting the opinion. Disagreeing with the opinion is when, while you do not share the same opinion or views or beliefs as the person with said opinion, you can still respect the opinion, the reasons for the opinion stated, and ultimately, the person who said it. Not respecting the opinion is when shit starts going south. It leads to pissy fits and arguments and fights with other people, and it just creates toxicity. Is this really what the FNaF community has become? Are you kidding me? Look, in my eyes, a good opinion and a bad opinion don't exist. Only just an opinion does. And that's honestly how it should be. I know I may get head turns with this next statement, but The concept of a take being good or bad is so fucking broken, it hurts my soul. If everyone had to think the same exact way as you, the world would be boring as fuck. Both if everyone loved Security Breach, and if everyone hated Security Breach. These people on both sides trying so hard to convince each other on the opposing side to think their way is just wrong. Again, if you like Security Breach, who cares? If you don't like Security Breach, who cares? If you think it's just okay, who cares? Both of these three opinions should be equally validated. It would be different if we were talking about something like committing murder or pedophilia. Factually, that shit is bad. However, this is a video game we're talking about. This is a video game everyone is getting up in arms about. Like, really? This community is getting more sadder and sadder each and every day from both sides. From the Security Breach fans and from the Security Breach haters. And I want to touch on one more thing regarding this subject, which is going to tie in both the opinion war and old fan versus new fan sections, while also discussing a certain person and their somewhat influence. Before I talk about this, I'm going to get this out of the way right now. In my personal opinion, Phil is a good guy, and he creates good games, and I heavily respect him a lot, and I'm looking forward to FNaF Plus and hope it succeeds. From what we know of it so far, it looks like he's putting a lot of effort into the game, and hopefully, it'll pay off. Anyway, so Phil Phisnom is one of the currently main 5 FNaF fan game developers involved in the Fazbear Fanverse initiative stated by Scott Cawthon to help fund and support the fan games from Phisnom, as well as KD's developer Emil Mako, Popgo's developer King Carter, the Droid Creations developer Nixon, and Flumpty's developer Jonachrome. When Security Breach released, Phisnom played the game till the very end on stream, even playing with the Security Breach bingo, which I personally found really funny. During these streams, Phisnom was having a terrible experience while playing Security Breach, and was not having fun at all besides a few parts there and there, like the DJ Music Man boss fight for example. Even his computer fucked up. After the streams were over, Phisnom posted a statement on Twitter regarding what he thought of Security Breach and the current direction of FNaF. To sum it up, he absolutely hated Security Breach, and came to the conclusion that he was not going to like the new direction for FNaF at all, and he actually wasn't even before Security Breach. Security Breach was just the final straw, and because of all of this, he was officially leaving the FNaF community. However, he also stated that he would still continue the development of FNaF Plus, and he would use his experience with Security Breach as a way to make FNaF Plus better in his eyes. After Phil stated all of this, he was bombarded with 2 very different responses from people. These responses being either from Security Breach dislikers saying, "I agree with you wholeheartedly," or Security Breach likers saying, "You're just a fucking asshole who doesn't appreciate shit." Of course, there was also the people that liked Security Breach but still respected Phisnom even with this, and the people that disliked Security Breach but still didn't respect how Phil went about this. However, unfortunately, these other responses were not either of the popular ones. The influence of this post caused people who hated Security Breach to feel more truth-filled and more justified and confident in their opinions, and caused people who love Security Breach to feel pissed at Phil, and by extension, the Security Breach haters even more. And of course, more community war. Lovely. I think the reason why Phisnom in his post had a significant influence was because Phisnom isn't a nobody. Phisnom is someone that is important to the FNaF community, regardless if you like him or not. He's associated with Scott Cawthon. He is someone with a following and reputation. If this statement was said by someone who nobody really knew, it wouldn't be as impactful and influential, but these words came out of someone that has influence, someone that people genuinely listen to and go to for FNaF discussions. Now, I'm not saying that Phil was wrong to do this. Phil has the right to have his opinion, like I've been saying throughout this video with people's thoughts on Security Breach. Phil has the right to discuss these opinions publicly, whether it be on his YouTube streams or his Twitter. Phil has the right to leave a game community because he doesn't like the direction the game series is going. Phil has had the right to do everything he's done regarding this whole Security Breach debacle. You can agree or disagree with his opinions on Security Breach, that's okay, but how he presented his opinions was not wrong. He's just brutally honest, and quite frankly, for a game series where its most prominent creators are usually positive and never really give negative criticism, this is honestly kind of a good thing in my opinion. He did partly influence a decent amount of people, but that's not his fault, and not something we should break his neck for. But still, even with Phisnom's part influence, If Security Breach never existed, Phil wouldn't be influencing these people, so yeah, Security Breach is still kind of to blame. Regardless if you liked or disliked the game, there's no denying that Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach is the most controversial FNaF game in the entire franchise. More than FNaF AR, more than FNaF World, more than Sister Location, more than FNaF 4, more than any game in the series, period. While in my opinion the game is pretty good, I cannot deny that Security Breach ruined the FNaF community. While it did bring in new people, it was a catalyst for some of the old fans to start opinion more shit, and now this community of 7 years is not the same anymore. This community is polarized. People have been death threatened over opinions on this game. People have lost friendships over this game. It's insane. Very insane. Everyone is now in separate fractions, and at that point, we aren't a community anymore. If I have to say anything before I end this, well, to both sides of this, to Security Breach haters and to Security Breach lovers, please respect the opinions of each other. Respect each other's tastes. Don't make your opinion out to be as fact and truthful as possible. Don't make your opinion try to sound more factual and more valid than the opposing opinion. And at the end of the day, both opinions on Security Breach and just any game in general really are equally valid. There's no need to start wars and fights and arguments on the internet over a silly bear game, man. And if you still feel like putting others down for their opinions on the game after watching this, do me and many people a favor and grow up.